Welcome, friends of the show. We are back with another episode of the Ferris Wheel Serious Rock Talk podcast.
Hello.
Hello.
A big thanks for your emails, suggestions, and your support on our social media platforms. Continue to email us at seriousrocktalk@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Listen to the new show every week. Just tune in each Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. New York City time on Cap City Beats, located at www.capcitybeats.ca. Okay, buckle up for some serious rock talk. To the left of me, a man that needs no introduction in songwriting, has helped Elton John and Bernie Taupin write Rocket Man.
That's a long time ago, Dr. Ian Clark.
And the man to the right of me actually spoke to Geddy Lee and told him, listen, you don't need to have a whiny voice.
Stephen Wheeler.
Gentlemen, how the hell are you?
Good.
It's wonderful to be here.
Excellent, excellent. So, we have Wheeler on the dock today.
Which we do.
Yes, we are.
What are we doing, big guy?
We are going to talk about final concerts.
Ah, interesting.
I've been to a few.
You know
You
what?
were the reason for a
I
few.
might have been to a few.
Final concert?
Yeah.
Elton John's supposed to have a final concert.
No, he won't. He won't die. He just won't stop.
So, in some cases, we're going to talk about some of these shows that were planned goodbyes, like Cream and the band,
Yeah, that's right.
or others that are doomed attempt of trying to reconnect, but ending up on the cut floor with, like, the Beatles.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
true.
well, the Abbey Road Studios one on the rooftop.
Which is goofy, but anyway.
Exactly.
What
So,
a dumb idea.
we're going to go in chronological order.
I just didn't like Lennon's jacket, and that.
Looks like he stole it from a grandma.
No, what is Ringo's wearing? A green, like someone just put
Shag carpet.
a needle in him, put him to sleep for a
What
while.
was that mustache?
I know, that hangdog mustache. Sorry, we're detracting from there.
We're criticizing the look of the Beatles.
But there
But you
is-
can't criticize the music, so you might as well criticize
Yeah,
the
good
look.
point.
To be honest, you know, to look good, Paul McCartney.
He always, well, of course.
Well, you looked like my dad at that point. My dad had the same kind of beard.
Yeah, really, eh?
Well, he didn't have the mustache, but he had like the
Yeah.
nice chin strap.
I'm sorry, I'm biased, McCartney. It's always going to be McCartney. I know, Ian, you hate me sometimes for
No,
this.
I don't. I think it's just anyway. We'll talk about this.
He's the
another
better
time.
Beatle.
The better Beatle. That's all I've ever wanted
He's
to
the
be.
best Beatle.
Unfortunately, we're going to start by giving Kennedy an ulcer by talking about Cream.
Oh, Cream, Jesus.
The only way he likes Cream is it's in his coffee.
I take milk, actually.
Oh, really? You hate Cream that much?
Well, it just tastes better.
So that would be the 26th of November, 1968.
What, the final concert album?
final
yeah,
concert.
yeah, they taped it.
Only 3 years that they did. We weren't even around
Oh,
that
if
long.
that, really? Not even that long, I don't think.
And it would be till 2005 till
I
they had a
know.
triumphant reunion, but that's a completely different story.
All
Totally.
three, are they still alive, all three of them?
No,
One
Ginger
is.
Baker's dead.
Okay. Jean Baker is gone.
One's alive, Clapton.
That's it? The other two are gone?
Yeah.
Jack Bruce is dead.
Yeah, gone.
Oh, that's right. Bruce did die.
Yeah, Jack Bruce, little Scotsman.
So the last show was at Royal Albert Hall in London, and basically it was the passing of the torch because at that same concert had Yes.
Oh, wow, really? I didn't know that. That's good trivia.
And the concert was filmed,
Yeah.
like you said, and later broadcasted on the BBC because the BBC had great programming in the late 60s.
I know. This was great. No one cared. So people walk in. You want to do a comedy group called Monty Python? Yeah, go ahead. I don't care. Whatever. Like, you get away with anything back then.
On TV, because
Yeah.
that's the funny thing, because Cream and the Beatles and like a lot of these groups were not played on the radio. You had pirate radio for
I
great
know.
music,
It's
but
weird.
You saw them on TV.
And the Benny Hill show.
That's a completely different,
Sorry,
great reason
I don't know
to
if that was
watch British.
BBC, but I have to throw that in there.
I think it was.
Was it?
Or was
ITV?
it Thames or something? I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, Tim.
Thames Television?
Yeah.
Tim.
Yeah.
The next one, of course, is the Beatles, the 30th of January, 1969.
Yeah.
The Let It Be album, is that it?
It was on the Let It Be album, but
Eventually.
eventually. It's of course, the best known famous final concert in history. It was on the rooftop of Apple, which was on 3 Savile Row.
Yeah.
It was conceived only a few days prior, and it was completely unannounced. The neighboring offices and public were taken by surprise as the loud music rang out over London. And the entire performance clocked in at 42 minutes, which frankly was a shitty length when you think about it.
Yeah,
if you had paid for it.
Yeah, when the Beatles were touring, their concerts were about half an hour.
An hour, exactly.
But also, I debate, it really wasn't a concert.
No.
You have no audience. You're looking out over a street.
It could be considered an unplugged, really.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Like an unplugged electric or something. I guess, come on.
And the legend has it that it was shut down by police, which frankly is hard to believe, considering the amount of noise you had in London on Savile Row.
Yeah,
back in
but
the 60s.
they wanted it shut down by police.
Exactly.
So.
Next one, September 6, 1970, Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, that's too bad.
So it was at the Open Air Love and Peace Festival, and I'm letting you trying to guess in what country.
Open air, love and peace. I'm just trying to think of his final. Is either England or in California somewhere? I don't know.
No, it strangely enough, Germany.
Oh, of course.
Fehmarn, Germany.
Yeah, you threw me off with the perfect English.
Exactly. So he gave his final performance just 12 days before he died.
Yeah.
It was billed as Jimi Hendrix Experience. The band featured Mitch Mitchell on drums and Billy Cox on bass alongside Hendrix. And you had A. Joe, Purple A's, and All Along the Watchtower.
Sure.
As well as new material nobody cared for.
Yeah,
New
if they
Rising
only
Sun.
knew, eh? I wonder if it was it taped? Like
It was because
That's
the entire set was officially released in 2005.
2005. Wow. Okay.
Goes to show that you have to keep yourself in good health to actually hear what the legends produced
know.
50 years prior. The Doors. Can you guess when was
Isle of Wight was their last was the last big concert thing, but I don't know if they taped. The last time they ever played live with Jim Morrison was in New Orleans.
Yes,
Was
that's you're amazing, man.
Was that taped?
I'm not sure.
Apparently, it was a dreadful concert. So
it was at the Warehouse in New Orleans, the 12th of December 1970, so probably already in the Christmas spirit.
yeah, really, well, most of his life was.
3 months after the release of LA Woman in spring of 1971, Morrison was found dead in Paris. And it's basically become somewhat legendary, but
It has
not
been
for the good
reasons.
reasons.
Not for a great reason.
Then we jump in time to 1976, November 25th.
Yeah.
The Band. So
Last Waltz, I guess, right?
exactly, and so it was literally like a decade almost to the day since they had started. They wanted to make the famous final concert something special. November 25th, we're in the States, so it's Thanksgiving. It's in the Winterland in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And it was filmed by the great
Martin
Scorsese. And you have probably the best lineup ever filmed. Bob Dylan, the Staple Singers, Emmylou Harris, Van Morrison, Muddy Waters, Neil Diamond, Eric Clapton, and Neil Young, amongst many others.
And Ronnie Hawkins.
The Hawk!
And strangely enough, though, and this I didn't know, they reformed in '83, but without Robertson.
Yeah.
And they would continue to record and tour until Rick Danko's unexpected death in 1999. But frankly, at that point, I stopped caring anyways.
Yeah, I know. Well, didn't what the piano player? What's his name? He committed suicide. It's quite sad. I thought he died before Danko, but I might be wrong on that. Oh God, I'm sorry, folks. I forget his name, but you know, I mean, he had a beautiful voice, and anyway.
So next one, we skip
Richard Manuel.
We skip almost a year in the future. So October 1975 with Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Okay.
So this was at South Carolina's Greenville Memorial Auditorium, which is it's a little too much on the nose as in...
I mean 77.
77, sorry.
Did you drink?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why your washer fluid is so low.
No, good thing it was on sale.
The concert took place only 2 days after the release of Street Survivors. A day later, the Southern Rockers would crash in their plane, killing lead singer Ronnie Van Zant, guitarist Steve Gaines, and backing vocalist Casey Gaines. The surviving members and original guitarist Ed King reunited in '87. And
that's interesting.
Johnny Van Zant took his brother's place as the frontman.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird, eh?
10-year, was it 10-year, I guess not hiatus, but a 10-year, like they'll think it through if we're going to come back. Yeah. That's interesting. Wow.
Next, the legendary Led Zeppelin. So this was July 7th, 1980, the day the 70s died, basically. It was the tour over Europe in support of Into the Outdoor, which finished at the Eiserporta Hall in Berlin.
Uh-oh. Germany sounds dangerous. Yeah, I'm not going to give a last concert there.
2 months to the day after the show, drummer John Bonham was found dead. Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, and John Paul Jones have come together for a few one-off shows, and Page and Plant toured together back in '94, but ever since then, they've refused to do a reunion tour, to the great sadness of many.
Well,
No, not yeah. I know, but you don't want to. They're old guys, and
Now, yeah.
just leave them alone.
The Eagles, July 31st, 1980. We have to put a little pin on this one. This is one of many final concerts.
94 was when they came back again. The hell freezes over.
Yeah, that's right.
So the Eagles imploded in front of everybody on a summer night in 1980 at Long Beach.
They went after each other. What's his name?
Glenn Frey and Don Felder were simmering through the concert. By the time we went on stage, it was seething, and I wanted to kill Felder, apparently Frey said in a 2013 documentary, The History of the Eagles.
Yeah.
They're so freaking popular.
Word were exchanged and threats made on stage between the two after the show.
There's a video of it.
Which you have to say, this is probably the most immature band ever.
I know. They have way too many drugs, too. So it's...
So after the show, Felder smashed his guitar, walked out, got in a limo, and was gone. The band would lay dormant until the Hell Freezes Over tour in '94. When they hit the road, playing to throngs of fans worldwide, Felder eventually exited and Frey died, but Eagles continued.
Sadly enough, in a way.
Sadly enough, yeah.
It's an oldies group, and so what?
Then we have The Who in '82, the 17th of December.
Interesting. Didn't Moon pass away in 70-something?
78, I think.
Something like that.
Interesting. So they went on 4 years without it. Well, they're still going, but whatever.
So they actually pre-announced this as a farewell performance.
Yeah, Pete Townsend was always doing that.
See, I love when Ian gets mad. I love when you do that. You're like, okay.
Well, these guys are just dumb as sticks, half of them. Like, it's just, you're either going to leave me or not.
Can you guess where the final... This
Toronto.
Sequence, yes, the Maple Leaf
I was going to
Gardens
say
in
the
Toronto.
Fillmore. I was going to say wherever the Fillmore.
No, but I saw it was broadcast, simulcast on TV.
Did you go? You were there in Toronto?
No, I just watched it on TV. We were at this big party, and they had it up on what was then a big screen. And, we all...
What, 30 inches?
Yeah, no, the kind of way they would flash the three primary colors.
Oh, yeah.
It was pitiful. And I always remember John Entwistle saying Twist and Shout in a key way too high for him. And it was good. But it doesn't mean anything because there's still... after that, the three of them went on. So
Exactly. So they would reunite in '85 for Live Aid, and again in '88 for the Brit Awards. A full-scale tour followed in '89.
yeah, it's that time, full-scale tour. And what's his name? Croaked. And
Whistle died.
in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
I'm right.
And they were lured back in '96, and basically I've been touring ever since until 2015.
Actually, I can give you a bit of trivia on that. This is in Las Vegas, and just before he died, Entwistle was walking through a lobby with Sammy Hagar, and Hagar said to him, "Look at this, two legends walking together." And Entwistle said, "No, one legend."
Oh, Jesus.
So Whistle's the legend?
Yeah, compared to Hagar. What? There's a question about that?
Just want to make sure.
Holy Jesus, back to school.
So, and for those of you who don't know, Maple Leaf Gardens is now a grocery store. So that,
it's too bad.
Whole Foods.
No,
really.
Loblaws. I think.
Loblaws, really?
I know, it's too bad.
Mr. Gillen Weston, the PC guy.
The PC guy.
There you go.
And finally, our last final show is Guns N' Roses, July 17, 1993. Again,
I saw them when they came back, though, not in 93. I saw them in 2017.
well, you couldn't go out past 8 in 93, so...
Yeah, well, no, I couldn't, but still. Yeah.
The ever-combustible Guns N' Roses hit the road early in 91 for the Use Your Illusion tour, when they played to stadium-sized crowds with poor internal relations coupled with and possibly caused by various use of drug amongst the band members became a lethal combination. After a show in Buenos Aires, Axl Rose
Took off his kilt.
unceremoniously fired guitarist Gilby Clarke, who had replaced original guitarist Izzy Stradlin. Before the tour began, fellow founders Slash and Duff McKagan later departed as well. 8 years later, Rose emerged with a new version of Guns N' Roses, featuring himself as the only original member. Then in 2016, he got back together with Slash and McKagan for a usually successful reunion. So that's the end of our farewell show.
But those guys there, so true story, this is what the story tells, is that when they recorded Chinese Democracy in 2008,
Which took about 12 years to make. Yeah.
pretty well, Axl went in, did the vocals, and then Slash went in after to do that. And the key person to keep that relationship alive is Duff McKagan.
And good for
He's
him.
like the peacemaker. And I've always loved Duff as a bassist. I think he's the best. And you know what? To me, and you guys know that, no Slash, forget it, man.
I agree
That was
with
never
that.
gonna
Yeah,
go.
he's the Keith Richards. He's the soul.
He is. And Duff McKagan, I'm sorry, you need, technically speaking, you need those three. Unfortunately, people that say, well, yeah, Axl this, look, whatever. Axl's Axl, but at the end of the day, he is the voice.
Yeah.
Slash and Duff are also the personalities. I would have brought back Steve Adler, the original drummer. That's just me.
Yeah.
But, whatever, I'm not there. I hear cocktail music.
I hear it too, and I'm going to jump in. I'm just going to stop that damn cocktail music.
Hello.
And now it's time for Ian's Knock, a little segment we like to call Affairs with Rock Show, where Ian himself will rant and rave on books, reviews, musicians, artists, people, or whatever just does not go his way that day. Who knows? You might be on Ian's Knock, 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 Knock.
And like today, folks, I'm going to talk about concept albums. And they've always driven me insane. And as listeners of the podcast know, I have an abiding problem with lists. I think they're invented mostly by lazy journalists, for lazy listeners, and finally for hungry record companies and dumbed down radio station. And that's when I'm in a good mood. That said, occasionally I will come across lists that's worth discussing because it's apparent the list was put together by someone without commercial motivations. And who knows what they're talking about, though I may strongly disagree with some of the selections. Okay, this list, the 10 greatest rock concept albums ever recorded, comes from Goliath.com. I find it interesting, perhaps for the wrong reasons. Our listeners also know that it is my confirmed belief that most rock and rollers are as dumb as sticks. And it becomes painfully apparent when they try to create a concept album and abandon great rock and roll songs like Wild Thing or My Baby Does the Hanky Panky. Let's look at the themes of these albums. The Who, Quadrophenia. We follow the story of a young mod named Jimmy in London who likes drugs, girls, and fighting. A lot like my amigo Ferris Kennedy. Though being disenchanted and clashing with his parents, Jimmy decides to take the train down from Brighton, where he previously had great experiences with other mods led by Ace Face. Upon arriving in Brighton, Jimmy finds Ace Face working as a bellboy. Being disillusioned and feeling that life has rejected him, he steals a boat and sails out to sea, where he contemplates his life in the rain. The ending makes it unclear what his fate is. Very likely he will go on to be the night manager at a McDonald's restaurant. The Mothers of Invention, Freak Out. Released in 1966, Freak Out is regarded by many to be one of the very first concept albums. Much like the rest of Frank Zappa's body of work, Freak Out is his satirical rather perception of American pop culture. Zappa said, quote, "If it wasn't as if we had one hit single and needed to build some filler around it, each tune had a function within an overall satirical concept," unquote. For the record, For his records, I could never tolerate Frank Zappa, but don't let this stray comment negatively impact your listening pleasure. Rush, 2112.
Here we go.
While the second side of 2112 is not part of a concept, you can't talk about concept albums without talking about Rush's 1976 release. On side A, 2112 is comprised of 7 tracks, chapters, which tell the story of a life in the year 2112 after a galaxy-wide war in 2062 has resulted in all of the planet being ruled by the red star of the Solar Federation. I'm not making this up. The priests of the temple of Syrinx control all content, but an unnamed protagonist finds an ancient guitar, hang in there folks, and learns to play his own music. He goes to the priests, hoping that they will praise him for his discovery, but instead they destroy it and shun him for unearthing something that led to the collapse of civilization. He then dreams of the world before, where people could be creative, but is so depressed upon awakening that he kills himself as another war starts. That sounds a lot like the plot of most Canadian movies, always life-affirming and cheery. Genesis, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, released in 1974, the final record with Peter Gabriel. Peter Gabriel's been gone a long time. Wow. The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway tells the story of a New York kid named Ray-Al, who goes on a surreal journey of self-discovery. He is forced underground when he encounters bizarre character, including a terrifying sexual experience with Miley Cyrus. No, I am making that up. A sexual experience with 3 snake-like women. And then he's castrated and must attempt to save his brother, John. Like, you can't, these guys. It is revealed throughout the album that Ray-Al is actually searching for a missing part of himself, man. Phil Collins has stated the album is actually about him coming to terms with a receding hairline at age 15. I'm just throwing that in to lighten it up. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Keith Moon. It explores themes of conflict, greed, and time, and mental illness, and the power of positive thinking. I'm kidding. It largely looks at the deteriorating mental state of the band's former lead singer and guitarist, Syd Barrett. This is most notable in the song Brain Damage, where the lyrics explore mental illness stemmed from the elevation of fame. Each of the 10 tracks reflects various stages of human life, beginning and ending with a heartbeat. Folks, never ever play this on a first date or at a disco. And that also goes for Aqualung. Snot running down his nose. Frank Zappa, Joe's Garage. Zappa described it as, quote, a stupid little story about how the government is going to do away with music, unquote. And it follows the story of a typical adolescent, Joe, who forms a band in his garage. As told by the central scrutinizer, Joe attempts to become a rock and roll legend, but ends up giving all his money to a government-assisted religion, gets arrested, and when released, he goes insane after working the night shift at Kinko's. I threw that in there. No. After finding a dystopian society where music has been criminalized. That sounds a lot like North Korea on a good day. The Beatles, an album called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. You might have heard of it. It's a fairly well-known LP.
Really? I thought it was obscure.
It was one of those rarities, like a B-sides thing.
It released in 1967. The concept is that it is a performance by a fictional band who are alter egos of themselves. Here we go. This gave the Beatles the freedom to experiment musically. Really? The album opens up with a pit orchestra warming up and the sound of an audience waiting, making it appear like a live recording. McCartney then acts as master of ceremonies, introducing the bandleader Billy Shears. And then they perform with little help from my friends. While the concept may not be self-evident, no kidding, Sgt. Pepper's remains an important influential concept record, which aided the development of progressive rock. I think this is the weakest concept album on this list. As Lennon himself said, there's really no overall theme to it. At least this saves it from being punishingly depressing like the rest of this stuff. The Who, Tommy, 1969, composed by Pete Townsend. Tommy tells the story of a young boy, here we go, who sees his father murder somebody. His mother then brainwashes him into believing that he did not see or hear it, seeing all of his senses shut down so that he is left deaf, dumb, and blind. His parents try and fail to find a treatment. They become frustrated and begin to neglect Tommy, who is tortured, molested, and given LSD. Oh, man. After becoming a pinball wizard, it is later determined that his disabilities are psychosomatic. And after he smashes a mirror, he regains his senses. He starts his own religion, which expands into a holiday camp, but his followers reject his teaching and leave. He then studies dentistry and opens a successful practice. I'm kidding. The Pink Floyd, The Wall. Okay. As with Pink Floyd's other albums, it is depressing beyond human comprehension. No insanity and isolation are the key themes here, which Roger Waters explores. The Wall follows the story of a guy named Pink, whose mother is overprotective of him following the death of his father in World War II. He becomes tormented by his teachers. He becomes a rock star, has a breakdown in his marriage, and starts taking drugs. All the traumas that he goes through sees another brick added to the wall, which represents his isolation from society. He suffers a nervous breakdown and places himself on trial in his mind, with his inner judge ordering him to tear down the wall. Eventually, he meets a nice girl. They run a successful grocery store and have 4 healthy children who love life. I'm kidding again. David Bowie, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. With the rise of glam rock, Bowie reinvented himself as the flamboyant and androgynous Ziggy Stardust. His story is told through this 1972 album where he is a bisexual alien who becomes a rock star to bring a message of hope with the world ending in 5 years. He becomes somewhat of a prophet and a victim of his own rock star excess. The album ends with Bowie singing a rousing cover of The Hills Are Alive from The Sound of Music. I kid. Okay, folks, this is extremely humble in my opinion, but half of these albums aren't conceptual, not really. There's no straightforward narrative, no sense of building drama. As I said, I think the worst notion of a concept album is probably Sgt. Pepper. It's like it's bookended by 2 songs that are correlated, kind of, and that's about it, except the cover and the cover photo. You remember the Beatles are in these outfits. So that's pretty thin gruel. Again, it's all just opinion, but I happen to be right. And this is Dr. Clark signing off. Ian's Knock.
That is a very interesting concept.
Yeah.
You put there Frank Zappa twice.
Yeah, well, he was hey, I may not love the guy, but he was there in 66, which is, I think, pretty well the beginning of concept albums.
He died young, too. He was like 52.
Yeah, poor guy. But yeah, in Joe's Garage, I remember when it came out, just something about Zappa. I think he was a little too smart for the job. It's his life.
Carry on, Wheeler.
So after the death knell of bands, we're going to talk about resurrections. So we are now on the top 10 reunion tours of all time. Since there are only 3 certainties in the world of rock and roll: death, taxes, and reunion tours. And usually all linked.
And groupies, probably.
Bob Seger's still touring, just so you know.
God help.
So in most cases, no matter how bad the disagreement that led to the band's meltdown, like Van Halen, The Who, and the Eagles, eventually the creative chemistry, and to be fair, the lure of a huge paycheck usually causes them to bury the hatchet and go back to working together. So we're going to try here to have some of the more colorful reunion tours. And we're going to start with Black Sabbath. With all due respect to the many great musicians who have performed under their banner, especially Ronnie James Dio, most fans agree that there is only one true Black Sabbath lineup. But when singer Ozzy Osbourne went on to become far more commercially successful as a solo act than his bandmates after they fired him in '79, the chances of a reunion seemed unlikely. But that's just what happened in '97 when Iommi, Geezer, and Osbourne
Needed money.
needed enormous amounts of money, or at least initially with Bill
therapy.
Ward reunited as part of the Ozfest tour, and later as their own concerts. They toured together sporadically throughout the years until we hit 2017 when Butler, Iommi, and Osbourne announced their final concert together, and they made a huge load of money just with the album, the videos, the everything.
No.
So they parted on good terms, and I'm guessing maybe
And good bank accounts too.
exactly. If they ever need to give the middle finger to the taxman. Maybe they will be back one day.
Probably what it was. Pay back taxes.
Kiss.
That's a band?
No, that's a commercial
Oh,
venture.
it's a novelty. Yeah. Okay.
17 long years passed between the last show featuring all 4 original members of Kiss back in 79.
Before Gene Simmons fired them all. Yeah.
Exactly. And the first full concert of their 1996-97 reunion tour. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley finally welcomed back Ace Frehley and Peter Criss back into the fold. And of course, this brought on a sold-out crowd of screaming maniacs.
Well, the Kiss Army.
The Kiss Army. At the Detroit's Tiger Stadium. The band has kept the makeup on ever since, although Tommy Taylor and Eric Singer currently perform in the Space Ace and Catman roles.
God, it's sad.
In every shape way possible.
I don't mean really get the Partridge Family in there or something to shake it up.
Donnie Bonaducci as the Catman?
Yeah, sure.
Van Halen. David Lee Roth and Van Halen's 1985 breakup, which happened at the height of their commercial success, stunned the music world. It took over 2 decades, and by various reports, several failed attempts for them to get back on stage together on September 27, 2007, for their highly successful reunion tour. Of course, it wasn't a full reunion since Michael Anthony, who is currently in Chickenfoot,
Yeah, that's right.
was replaced
By Wolfgang.
So the new lineup, which Rod dubbed three quarters original, 1/4 inevitable, at the show we attended, released the reunion album A Different Kind of Truth in 2012.
And a different kind of hairline, too, for Dave.
Exactly.
Several failed attempts. I think several is an understated word. I think it was nothing but a hatred. You know what? Even with Hagar, there seemed to have been some sort of disconnect, too.
There's some problem.
And you know, just a sidebar, I don't want to poo-poo on Wheels' Parade here, but let's just face it, without Roth, there really weren't all... You could say they had some success with Hagar, but it's not even close. I'm sorry. You know, I'm not biased a little bit, but I'm also taking a little bit of fact here.
They had that one album, what was it called?
Well, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, yes. And 5150. Yes, they're great albums. I have both of them. I have a lot. Actually, I have every Roth Van Halen album.
No, I'm talking about the Hagar album.
Yeah, I have 2 of his. 5150.
How many did he have? Like 4 or 5? Or?
There's Van Halen 2, Fair Warning, Women and Children, Jump, 1984. That's 5 with Roth. I got 7. Yeah. On vinyl, I have 7.
Okay.
5 with Roth, obviously, because everyone knows I like Roth. I don't have, Hagar, whatever. It is what it is, but... And then on CD, I think I have all of them.
Yeah.
Well, CDs now are so cheap that...
It sounds not the same.
No, exactly.
Sorry, Wheels. Go
No,
ahead.
it's okay. The Who at Madison Square Garden. So 7 years after the 1982 farewell tour, which apparently seemed to be the end, they reunited in 89 to the delight of their fans. They brought some big changes to their live shows. Drummer Kenny Jones, who took over for deceased member Keith Moon, was replaced himself by Simon Phillips. Pete Townshend actually started developing tinnitus at that point, which forced him to perform on acoustic guitar for most of the shows. To help fill in the sound, the group employed a dozen backing musicians, including a full horn section.
Yeah, wow. I know he brought his brother in, too. Townsend's brother played with him.
It's a way of keeping your lazy brother.
I know.
Give him a job.
Give him a job.
Can only imagine his mom. Come on, you have to
Give
bring
him a job.
him.
Well, that's what Mrs. Wilson did for Brian with Dennis. So
Really?
Dennis has to be in the group. He can't do anything, Mom. Put him on drums. So that's what.
Put him on a triangle.
Yeah.
And it's sad he passed away out of all of them first.
You
Surfing
know.
accident.
Right. Well, no, drinking.
Oh.
He was drunk and he jumped in the water to retrieve some jewelry that fell off the boat. And when you drive in the water drunk, it's a really, really bad idea because down becomes up.
So next one, Rage Against the Machine. They broke up back in 2000 with the departure of Zach de la Rocha.
Oh, De La Roca.
De la Roca.
Yeah, the lead
Great
singer.
name, eh? Like that sounds
Zach De La Roca.
like an ancient, I don't know, Dumois novel or something.
So basically, then the band was completely lost and aimless for a long time, until 7 years later, where they finally got back together to play Coachella. Reunion dates followed through 2011, before three members of the band joined Chuck D of Public Enemy and Be Real of Cypress Hill in 2016 to form the new supergroup Prophets of Rage.
Yeah, Tom Morello went there. Great guitarist. Very, very political. He's an activist.
Oh, great.
Well, Rage Against the Machine was extraordinary.
I understand.
As well.
But, by the way, a sidebar, he actually roomed with Maynard Jones of Tool in LA when they first moved out there. Yeah, they were roommates.
God, you would want to clean the washroom after those guys.
And Maynard worked like part-time, like at I think it was like a pharmacy or something in a photo lab. It was
really?
It was a crazy, crazy story. Tom Morello's like actually a great guitarist, and his stories are pretty cool. Yeah, he's big on social issues and whatnot, you know.
Some guys are. John Lennon was, which made him such a pain, but there you go.
But I find musicians should just shut up.
Basically, just shut up.
Like Ricky Gervais says, no one cares. Come up, get your little award, say a little speech, and piss off.
That's what he said. Most of you are poorly educated. Just shut up.
He's got a point.
Yeah. Brad Pitt on politics? Really?
Shut up.
I'm barely. No, that's why no one watches award shows anymore.
Exactly.
They're in trouble.
Judas Priest.
Are they metal, by the way?
They are. They're
Okay.
extraordinarily metal. So
Early metal. Sorry.
True, yeah.
British metal.
They broken up. They broke up back in the late 80s, early 90s, when the legendary vocalist Rob Alford decided to leave Judas Priest in 91, reportedly due to internal tensions. We guess he probably had a big ego as well.
Drugs probably were involved.
Probably
they always
as well.
are with these guys.
He officially parted ways with Judas Priest in 92 and was replaced by Tim the Reaper Owens in 96. Although Owens was impressive with his own talent, Priest fans rejoiced in 2003 when the metal god Rob Alford returned to the band. Judas Priest's 2004 landmark reunion tour began in Europe with supporting act Annihilator, along with a cluster of US dates for the Ozfest 2004 tour, and they toured until really recently, where Alford actually had to stop for a while because I think he had a really horrible form of cancer, which I think he's now cured of, but I'm not sure.
Wow.
I had read recently that he's in remission, so...
Good for him.
Next one, the Eagles. It was quite a shock when the Eagles reunited to tour in 94.
Damn right it was.
A fact that they acknowledged by the name they gave to the resulting live album, Hell Freezes Over. Their breakup in 1980, of course, we just talked about. But let's face it, money and sometimes
money
relevancy.
Talks, yeah. Money talks.
Exactly. So they toured from 94 basically until 2001 because Felder just couldn't stand the negativity anymore, and Frey died, so they're done.
Frey died, yeah. Not that long ago, right?
No, exactly. And now Alice in Chains. Although there's no official breakup of Alice in Chains, the band effectively split up in 96. Lane Staley had become a recluse after the death of his ex-fiancée, which caused the troubled vocalist to delve deeper into drug culture. Any hopes for a reunion was apparently shattered when Staley died in 2002 of a drug overdose.
I didn't know that.
Alice in Chains, slowly began to play shows again, beginning with Jerry Cantrell,
William Duvall,
and Sean Kinney. They united at a Tsunami benefit show in 2005.
Stanley, by the way, went to rehab 13 times.
Well, you got to hand it to him. He went. Right, he's trying.
13 times. Well, he did try.
They eventually recruited vocalist William Duvall for a short trip in 2006, and then they played festival dates in Europe and several shows in Japan, because you're big when you're big in Japan.
When you live with Bukidon, yeah.
Iron Maiden. It's one of the most important reunion tours in metal history, when vocalist Bruce Dickinson and guitarist Adrian Smith returned to Iron Maiden after a long absence, starting in 1990, following a decade of service. And Dickinson actually left in 93. But the duo simultaneously returned to the band in 1999 with a newly reunited lineup. They embarked on the Headhunter Tour, which visited North America and Europe in 1999. And they've basically been touring ever
Yeah.
since. And finally, our last group on this list, Soundgarden. Soundgarden quickly became one of the world's biggest band during the early to mid 90s. Soundgarden disbanded in 97, but after a 12-year absence, they rose up again from the dead, memorably headlining the 2010 Lollapalooza Festival. Soundgarden went on to the first full-on tour in the summer of 2011 and continued together through Chris Cornell's sudden death in 2017.
That sucks.
It sucks big time, yeah.
So that we are done.
That's really interesting stuff. Get some good trivia there, too.
Very good.
Yeah.
You hear what? You're hearing something in your ears?
And now, Yes or No with Ferris Kennedy, the segment where the sick, drug-addled mind of Mr. Kennedy forcibly asks Dr. Clark and Medicated Wheeler yes or no questions about classic rock, and you get to hear the sick, drug-addled answers.
Makes my knees freeze.
With the huge fan support or listener support, I'm going with another Who Do You Prefer? Drummers edition.
Oh, no.
But I'm going to torture Wheeler first.
Okay.
So that's why you have those sticks in your hand.
Of course. Wheeler,
Yes, sir.
Nick Mason or Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden. What's wrong with Nico McBrain?
Nothing. I just love the name.
Yeah, yes.
Nick Mason.
But yeah, there's no... Okay.
Okay. Phil Collins or Steve Gadd?
Phil Collins.
Chad Smith or Tommy Lee?
Ooh.
That's interesting.
Very good drummers.
They're very good drummers, but I'll go with Chad Smith because I don't want to catch whatever Tommy Lee is.
Because he looks like Will Ferrell.
Well, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Steve Adler or Alex Van Halen?
Alex Van Halen.
Phil Rudd or Chris Slade? These are the two drummers of AC/DC.
Yeah.
Chris.
Really? Wow, okay.
Just because I have a feeling he knows all the band's secrets and he doesn't look like the kind of guy you ask those questions, so he has a lot of pent-up stories.
Roger Taylor or Taylor Hawkins?
Roger Taylor.
Tico Torres or Buddy Rich?
Buddy Rich.
Bill Ward or Lars Ulrich?
Lars.
Lars is trouble, though.
Bob Seibenberg or Phil Ehart?
Phil.
So you're going with Kansas over Supertramp. Interesting. Okay. Matt Sorum or Tyler Stewart?
Tyler Stewart.
Okay. Clarky?
How may I help you?
Oh, well, you're going to be. Ringo Starr or Charlie Watts?
Oh, I will go with Charlie Watts.
John Densmore or Keith Moon?
Oh, you bastard. You bastard. I don't like these.
Yes, you do. Don't lie.
Yeah, in a perverse kind of punishing way I do. This is really interesting, folks. Really totally different guys. I'm going with Densmore. Okay.
Wow.
I know it hurts.
You're big on Moon. That's
yeah, because he was the soul of the Who, and I hate answering questions like that. Okay.
All right. John Bonham or Neil Peart?
Shut up. Of course, Bonham.
All right. Don Henley or Dennis Wilson?
Well, Don Henley. Dennis couldn't really drum.
Here's one that you might have. Corky Lang or
Yeah.
Johnny Hutchison?
Corky.
Yeah. Corky, sure.
Well, he's Canadian. He
Yeah.
played for Mountain.
Yeah, he did Mississippi Queen's enough for me.
Here's one that you can make a decision for me. Kenny Aronoff or Dave Grohl?
Interesting. I know how you love Dave, and Kenny's like this master musician, so it's a tough one. You know what? I'm just going to go for Grohl because he's got all this soul in his playing. So.
And for the record, for all of you that know, I love these two guys almost
you love
equally,
them.
and I have a hard time deciding.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is. Thomas Lang
Yeah.
or Joey Kramer?
Kramer.
Kramer. Really? So you go with Aerosmith. Okay.
He's a good drummer. He's always underrated.
Stuart Copeland
Yeah.
or Adam Clayton Jr.?
Stuart Copeland's an amazing drummer. A difficult guy, I know.
Okay. So you're going with Copeland?
Yeah.
Levon Helm or Kenny Jones?
Well, I'm gonna go with Levon.
Because old Virgil.
Yeah, but Kenny is interesting. I mean, the faces and all that, but whatever. I'm not gonna diss him right now, but okay.
Yeah, you're going with Levon?
Yeah.
Okay. And the last one, Nigel Olsen or Steve Gadd.
I'm gonna go with Nigel because I know he's steady and he's underrated, and he's been with Elton John since day one that I know of. So I appreciate longevity. He's even with him in Las Vegas. So I'm going with Nigel.
And he wears the white gloves when he drums.
I think because he's so his skin gets bothered or something. I think it's an age. He's about 105.
So that was the who do you prefer?
They're really interesting.
Yeah.
Those are gut wrenching because what was the one you asked me that was just like?
So that's the blood all over the floor. That's
yeah. It's like,
there
was one in particular that I felt. Oh, it was Keith Moon.
Densmore or Moon. Well, see, the thing is,
that's painful, man. That is just so painful.
Because I know, obviously knowing you guys, it's easy. So with Wheels, sometimes I have to think outside the box. I'm actually surprised you chose Lars, because I know you're a Sabbath guy. That's why.
Yeah, no, it's just sometimes you go more for the personality, I think.
He became nice, but he was he was trouble 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
All that piracy stuff. Yeah. He was a real pain.
And the thing with the Wheels, I did Copeland and Clayton, because you hate the lead singers of both those bands. But Clayton has been, I find, he's also kind of underrated a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
And I threw that in there. And Hutchison, just because he did some stuff that has, I don't know, he was with the Beatles for a little bit.
A little bit, I know. But you like to bring him up like Sonny James. He's one of those
Sonny Charles.
Sonny Charles, one of those pet guys you like to bring up.
But in my drum teacher, Charles, I asked him about Ringo, and he's like, I know. He says he's not a great drummer.
No, he's not great.
But he likes Roger. He likes Roger Taylor.
He's a really good drummer.
He likes Roger Taylor. He likes Charlie. He loves Buddy Rich. He said he saw Buddy Rich live and goes, Buddy Rich is like a really mean individual.
Yeah, I saw him live. He's an unpleasant person.
He's very, and he knows Thomas Lang personally.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm. He's done some not charity work or whatever, but they did some session work together, and he met Steve Gadd.
That's cool. No, you got to get over the thing. Yeah, Buddy Rich has a famous tape out where he's screaming at his band members. He was dreadful, but pound for pound, wasn't he the best? I mean, really.
Exactly.
He could do anything.
Because he's a jazz guy. And Wheels, you brought up, we did our second season, we did a supergroup show, and you put Art Blakely.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And I brought that up yesterday to my drum teacher, and he's like, "Funny you say that." He goes, "I had an 8-year-old student that did an Art Blakely song, and he goes, it was interesting to see how an 8-year-old could do jazz." So there's two types of drummers. It's either the rocker or a rudimentalist.
Yeah.
And my teacher's obviously training me to be more of a rudimentalist because you could kind of lean towards the other stuff. Exactly. So that's my modified yes or no. And I will come up with
Thanks very much.
Crazy stuff. I love getting you guys. But yeah, I knew the Moon and Densmore. I did it to.
That actually hurts because they're both really good, but they're both very different.
And you like both of them.
And I like both of them, so it's painful.
But it's no different if you would ask me Aronoff or Grohl.
Yeah, you've been in pain on that one.
I still have stomach cramps because I love both of them equally as drum. I think they're fantastic drummers, both of them.
Aronoff was in some kind of supergroup. I was going to mention it to you. I uncovered. I didn't know that he was in one of those where they named the 4 guys like Crosby. He was in a supergroup.
Chickenfoot, though. Speaking of Chickenfoot, Chad Smith was in Chickenfoot.
A few guys were in it. Yeah. That went through there.
And I think one guy from Blink. I have to look at that. I don't know who the lead singer is, but yeah.
Yeah, a few guys. It's one of those weird groups. It was a revolving door group.
Yeah.
No, thanks. That was great. Both of you guys. Really interesting. And with that, I think...
It's time for a review.
You think it's time for a review?
Oh,
I don't know. What do you think?
The music at night, it sounds bright on Wheeler's turntable. Shines a light, he keeps his vinyl in sight and gives you his magnificent review. Now here's a clue we have for you. It's time for Wheeler's vinyl review.
So now we're going to talk about not so much an anniversary as something if you want to really test your system to see just how nice vinyl can be. So today we're going to talk about Son of Schmielsen.
Oh, Leslie Nielsen from the Naked Gun and Naked Gun 2.5 and Naked Gun 33 and a third.
Smell of Fear. Yeah.
No, Harry. What's his name?
Harry Nilsson.
Harry Nilsson.
Yeah.
So this is a
The late great Harry Nilsson.
Exactly. So this is a 1972 gem that basically cemented his legend. It does help that on Son of Schmielsen you have collaborators like George Harrison, Ringo Starr, Peter Frampton, Nicky Hopkins, and Bobby Keys. Plus,
Wow.
the cover art is pretty special. It's him in a bathrobe with a cup of coffee.
Yeah. See, Harry Nilsson, folks, the late great had an he wasn't a jogger, I'll put it that way. He didn't go to a gym.
Oh, he's a large man.
No, but he lived hard. Like a lot of drinking, a lot of like he wasn't going to get gray hair. So anyway, long gone.
Mariah Carey did a cover of his song, I Can't Live.
If living is without you, yeah.
Living is without
He had an incredible voice, Harry Nilsson.
I gotta listen to his version.
He destroyed it, but
You think she destroyed it?
he did
Oh, he
through
did.
just drink and drugs and shrieking around. Yeah. Anyway,
So the version I'm talking about today has been printed at RTI, and it's on this label that I've talked about in the past called Mobile Fidelity.
yeah.
It's a cell phone company, right?
It probably was in the early O's, I'm guessing.
Really?
So Mobile Fidelity was something that was created in the 80s after the really thin albums of the 70s
They were horrible.
that were horrible.
Yeah, I mean, they were just so bad. I don't know. Anyway, the record company screwed up.
And so basically, Mobile Fidelity was in the 80s the reference. In the 90s and early O's, they cut corners. They went for CDs for a certain time, like CDs with gold in them for some strange reason. I'm not actually sure if that actually ever made a difference.
I know.
But in the last, let's say, 5 to 7 years, they've actually become a reference again. And so Son of Schmielsen is a numbered version at 180 grams, 45 RPM. It's a 2 LP set, so you know you're going to have to spit some cash to get to it.
Yeah, spinning at 45s, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be an amazing sound.
And it sounds really amazing. And for those of you out there who are tired of hearing love songs playing on the radio or even Christmas songs after a certain amount of time, Son of Schmielsen is the album for you because it's full of anti-love songs. Because at that point, Nielsen was going through a really painful divorce. So he had You Breaking My Heart, which had such vulgar lyrics at the time that basically no radio could play
No,
it.
you can't. It's the F word. You can't play that.
He also had Take 54 about a groupie and the vocalist's lust.
No, he went way off the deep end.
Then, Joy, which is a pastiche of country and western tropes. So the guy basically was having a meltdown on wax.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, he really went through something.
So if you're looking for something that's completely different from the usual pap that you'll hear
Yeah, good point.
coming through, this is the album for you, and it actually does test your system. It's going to sound okay on a regular system, but if you have an especially good turntable, good speakers, you're going to really love Son of Schmielsen.
It's a classic. I remember it very well. Yeah, poor Harry. Yeah, and he also had a great song. He's one of the first guys to cover the American Songbook. I think it's called "The Little Touch of Schmielsen in the Nighttime," which is a beautiful, gorgeous album.
Although with the most bizarre title when you think about it.
I know, but that's just Harry. That's just Harry.
Can't live.
And then is that you?
Living
Thanks very much. Very, very informative. And is that say too?
I believe that is it.
It is.
Yeah, another successful event. So I'm going to sign off.
You sign off.
I'm signing off. I'm Kennedy.
I'm Wheeler.
I'm Dr. Clark, and goodbye and good evening.
Au revoir.